I'm sorry, guys. I had to do that one time. Let's start over. Hi, I'm Ruben Martinez. I am RJM lawyer. I am so happy that you've decided to spend some time with me today, folks. This is the second part of a three-part series where last week we discussed probate. Real exciting stuff, right, Ruben? Today, we'll be discussing a living trust, a little bit more exciting. And next week, folks, we'll be discussing the red-hot topic of a Last Wailing Testament. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into what a living trust is anyway. Now, before I get into the not so exciting sort of legal description of it, let me go ahead and paint a picture. You guys like pictures, right? All right. So imagine the Air Jordan of documents, okay? Imagine the unicorn in the sky. Imagine fluffy, pearly clouds just kind of like breezing around. That's a living trust, folks. I'm just kidding. That's not a living trust, folks. That's just a bunch of words I jumbled together. No, a living trust is an instrument that we create during our lifetime that distributes our property upon our death. So the easiest way to illustrate this is imagine 2 points, okay? Point A and point B. Point A will represent you, the living person, right, who creates the trust. And point B will represent you, the dead person, whose trust property needs to make its long journey over. It's not really a long journey, folks, but you get the drift. So next, we want to talk about creation. How do you form a living trust? So if it ever has to go before a court, knock on wood, it never does. But if it ever does, it will hold water, right, folks? It needs to hold some water. So, for one, you need to be of sound mind, okay? Can't be crazy up there. Second, you need to be 18 years old. So you need to have reached the age of majority, which I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you probably are. And third, it needs to be evident that what you are creating is actually a testamentary document. So that's just a fancy word for either a trust or a will. It needs to be evident on its face that that is what you're creating. So for instance, you can't just start writing down, I'm giving my motorcycle to cousin A, and I'm giving my CD collection to cousin B, and then just expect it to magically work out, folks. No, it has to be clear on the document itself that this is your declaration of trust and that you are in fact making a living trust. Now I want to jump into the who, the what, and the when. The who, the what, and the when, folks. So it is critical that when you are drafting, putting together your living trust, that you need the what, which is what property are we talking about, first of all. Okay, the who's going to receive that property, and the when are they going to receive that property. So those three things are absolutely critical to any living trust because it really spells out in exacting detail for the trustee, the person who's in charge of distributing the property upon your demise, where that property is supposed to go to, and more importantly, who's it supposed to go to, and very, very more importantly, when it's supposed to go to them. All right, folks, so after we got the what, the who, and the when, squared away, next, we need to talk about validation, folks. How do you validate a living trust? For a will, which we'll get into next week, teaser, you need to have a will witnessed, okay? Can't be notarized. The rules in California are very clear. 2 disinterested witnesses, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, we'll get into it next week. But a trust. How do you validate a trust? Well, there's a couple different ways. One, you just sign it. Yeah, folks, you just sign it and it is immediately valid. Now, is that the best way to go about it? Probably not. The second way to validate a trust is to notarize it. So everybody's familiar with a public notary, right? A lot of banks will have a notary on staff. There's even mobile notaries, so it makes it super easy for you folks. Once you have your living trust all written out, you got all the important elements in there. You can even have a mobile notary come to you, folks, come to you, and go ahead and do the deed. Notarize your documents, that is. So that is very important. And if, for instance, if your living trust is ever challenged by somebody, God forbid, a notary just innately carries a little more credibility and weight and validity to it. So if you can, get the document notarized, okay? But at the very least, obviously, not at the very least, you have to sign it. But if you're just signing it, know that it's still legal, but go ahead and get it notarized. Might as well. Funding, folks. I'm going to say that again, even more dramatically this time. Funding. If there's any one single part of this entire process that can really, really be considered the straw that breaks the camel's back, everybody's familiar with the proverb, it is funding the trust. What does that mean exactly? Well, your trust is a document. It's paper and pen, or if you type it out, it's paper and ink, but it's just a document. Even if it has your signature and a notary stamp attached to it, it does nothing, folks. It absolutely does nothing. It's almost like a cup without water. It's useless unless it has a purpose to serve you, okay? Now, funding simply means that you need to fund your trust with the property that you have memorialized in the trust document. For example, if you are putting your home in your living trust, which is probably one of the main reasons to even put together a living trust, folks, you need to retitle that home, which just means you need to re-record it, your deed, with your county recorder's office, in the name of the living trust. So once that's done, your deed no longer says Ruben Martinez, owner of this house. It says this house is now owned by the Ruben Martinez, wait for it, living trust, folks. Now, it is absolutely vital that you don't skip this step. If you do, and you were to croak, your property would have to go through probate. And now I know some of you are still reeling, still having nightmares from the last episode where we discussed probate. You don't want to do it, folks. If you don't retitle that property, i.e. if you don't fund the trust with your home in it by following the rules, then your trust is just a piece of paper, folks. A glorified piece of paper, albeit, but a piece of paper. That's it, folks. Thank you for tuning in today to today's episode of Living Trust, a Revocable Living Trust. This was part 2 of a 3-part series. By the time we finish with the wills, you will be an estate planning Jedi, folks. I hope you were able to get some useful information out of today's episode. I know I didn't cover everything. There's just not enough time. Not enough time in the day, nor do I think you would really want to sit here for an hour listening to me speak. So I will quit. I will quit while I'm ahead, sort of. Please feel free to email me any questions. I can answer them in much better detail than I can or have not gone over in this episode. My email address is Ruben, RUBEN, at rjmlawyer.com. Now have a very blessed rest of your day, folks. It's been my absolute pleasure to entertain you for these 10 or so minutes. And that's it. RJM Lawyer out.